Welcome to Politics here on France 24. The summer holidays are nearing here in France. July 14th is a national holiday, and it's a good time to take stock of the first 2 months of the François Hollande presidency. The new socialist president and his government have begun to try to make some reforms, but also change the mindset from the previous presidency of Nicolas Sarkozy. François Hollande likes to describe himself as a normal president. Well, how does a normal president function, and has it worked until now? To discuss this issue, and we'll also discuss the economic and social situation in the second part of the show, is Christian Macarian, who is the managing editor of the news weekly L'Express. Also on the set, Philippe Turle from Radio France Internationale. And last but not least, John Keating, who is with the Kuna press agency, and he's also the vice president of the Anglo-American Press Association. So François Hollande, the quote-unquote normal president. 2 months later, what's your judgment?
Apparently, we live a very normal period of time in our new history, in this new page of history. My first feeling is that after fast politics, as there is fast food, we have now a kind of slow politics. And I think the only thing we can say is that we still have to wait to know more about the intentions of the government. The main problematic, from my point of view, is a significant change between the promises made all along the campaign, the presidential campaign, and a change that is going to happen now. That is to say, the famous use of the word, the forbidden word, rigueur, austerity. I think they're not going to use the word, but they're going to use the method.
We'll discuss
we'll discuss about that, but I think it's a crucial moment now. We will know more, I think, next weekend, because François Hollande is going to go back to the traditional interview of the Bastille Day.
Which Nicolas Sarkozy had ended.
Abolished, absolutely. But, well, slow politics after fast politics. And the question of the change, going back to austerity without confessing it, without admitting it. I think it's the main problematic.
Right. François Hollande has been performing rather well in the polls since his election. This kind of, okay, we need to slow down, be a little bit more quiet, be a little bit nicer maybe than the aggressive style of Nicolas Sarkozy. Is it working with the French? Is it what they're expecting, or is this just a honeymoon that will soon end?
I think it will soon end. I think it will be over by the end of the summer break in the next couple of months or so. By the time we get to September, I think we'll start seeing some social unrest, which always begins in France in September, October period after the summer vacation is over, and people are saying, all right, you've been elected since May, you've promised us this, you've promised us that, when are you going to come up with the goods? You haven't done that. Right, we're going to go onto the street and protest. Coming back to the normal aspect of François Hollande, this is just a name that he chose to try to distinguish himself from the rather normal Nicolas Sarkozy. But there's nothing normal about being president of France. It's not a normal job. You don't have to be a normal person to do it. You have to be, I think, rather strange to want to do that job. So it just doesn't wash with me, this normal business. I think we've come to the end of the road as far as him being normal is concerned. People are expecting the president and his government to change their lives. There was a huge relief in this country when Nicolas Sarkozy was beaten. You could feel it, the sort of relief that this pressure, this aggressivity of the former president was now over. So we've got Mr. Nice Guy in charge. But the problems are the same. France still has a high unemployment rate. France still has a massive debt. And whether he's a nice guy, a normal guy, or a nasty guy, or whatever type of guy, François Hollande and his government have got to come up with a solution. And that solution has got to be announced soon, and there's going to have to be some concrete measures to pacify people who are increasingly wanting to see their lives change for the better.
John Keating, no more anxiety because Nicolas Sarkozy is gone, or is it still there, but François Hollande is more or less able to channel it?
No, I think that, for Hollande, he's done quite well in marketing himself as being a normal president, different from Sarkozy's style, bling style with the Rolexes and the private planes, etc. Hollande has been taking a lot of trains, and he has really mediatized this quite well, having cameras, etc. He did it a lot more before he was president. Now, as my colleague said, he can't be a normal person as a president, but he's trying to do a transition from this accessible Francois Hollande, who is always in the street with the people, mobbed by people, getting pictures taken with train drivers and train conductors and passengers. And now I think he's transitioning slowly to a more reserved and more presidential normal person rather than a normal candidate. And I think that, he can't do it overnight, because then suddenly he can't go from being Mr. Accessible to Mr. Locked Up in the Elysee and sneaking out to take planes all over the world. So one of the first planes he took actually got hit by lightning, so it may have been a sign that it was a good idea to take trains in the first place. But no, I think he's managed this quite well. We'll have to see. 2 months is very short. Will he continue this after the summer break? I don't know. He's looked presidential in a lot of situations around the world, G8, London, etc.
As you were alluding, this is where he's been most of the time. I mean, he was elected on a very, people say, Franco-French program, Franco-French campaign, and then suddenly he is jet-setting around the world all the time. I mean, from Europe to the United States to Rio to other places, and this is maybe also the difficult part, because this is when you lose this connection that you established during campaign.
Yes, he seemed to regret this matter of fact. Last weekend when he met Angela Merkel, he said that all these international obligations created a distance between him and the people, but that's the function. Sometimes he seems to be a little bit a beginner, really a beginner, and I think he has to get rid of this behavior very quickly, because people want a truly professional president.
Can you give an example of him being a rookie, as they say in the US?
He's not precise. He's not precise on his economic program, for instance, about taxes. We're still waiting for the prescription. We don't know what is going to happen to all of us, and time goes fast. That's the first point. The second point is about Europe. He did something in Brussels, joining Italy and Spain, that was really not appreciated by Germany. Is it truly a victory? I don't know. It's a political victory. Is it a true, deep victory? I'm not sure. I think Angela Merkel, and above all Germany, is still the sun, and all the other small planets turn around this living heart, core of globalization, which is Germany. Germany is still the only country in Europe that has found a significant place in the race of globalization. It's not the case of UK. It's not the case of France. This is a true challenge for François Hollande. Sarkozy had chosen to follow Germany because he knew that we were too weak. But Hollande has another strategy, a strategy of rupture. Why not? Of conflict with Germany. I'm not sure he's going to carry on this line. But, well, I would say he has so many appointments on his agenda that, honestly, if I were him, I would be very worried, and I would go a little bit quicker than he does.
What is normal in this, although being president is not normal, is the role that he has to fulfill, which was the case in that of Jacques Chirac and François Mitterrand, the last socialist president, was to take care of France on the international front. Leave the national policies, the running of the country, to the government and to the Prime Minister. Under Sarkozy, all of that changed, and Sarkozy took over the running of the whole country and the running of the world and controlled everything. The hyper president who just wouldn't delegate any power to anybody. So François Hollande's come along and said, right, that's over. Now I'm giving the power to the Prime Minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault. He is running the government. He is going to run the country, and I will take a back seat and I will run the France's role on the international scene. And I think on that in that particular department, he's done pretty well. He's had what they call in France a sans faute from the start, from his election in the socialist primaries to be candidate, to his candidacy, the way he run his campaign during the presidential election, to the fact that he was elected, and what he's done since he got into office. There's been one little blip on it, which was this story of his girlfriend sending a text message to the rival candidate against François Hollande's former partner, Ségolène Royal, during the legislative elections, where many people said, well, who's the one in charge? How come the girlfriend of the French president is trying to support a rival candidate within the legislative elections? Why can't he say something? But apart from that, what he's done up until now has been, I think, pretty perfect. But as Christian was saying, we now need to move on. We need to move a bit faster. We need to know what's going to happen next. We need to know, what is the government going to do? How is the government going to get France out of its dreadful situation of appalling debt? How are they going to get the accounts balanced, which France's accounts haven't been balanced since the 1970s? What are they going to do to bring down the unemployment rate? All those are the pressing questions. We need the answers. We need the answers pretty quickly.
On the issue of this, private life / public life, François Hollande criticized Nicolas Sarkozy for making his private life public, and vice versa, this bleep that Philippe was mentioning. Do you think the French have already forgotten about it? Or they're asking whether François Hollande is truly the man he says he is? Meaning someone who thinks, collectively about France and not about himself.
I think by not reacting, he played it cleverly. Behind the scenes, his advisors and his staff were reacting with his companion. I think that reacting would have just generated another spin on this, and it would have made it, the president said this, and then someone would react to what the president said. I think in their private life, it was very clear. What leaked out was that he told her she had her role and he had his role, and she didn't agree, and we'll see what happens there. But to get back to some of the points I made, I think Hollande has done extraordinarily well with the public. Journalists are always a different breed. We're always looking for when will he make a mistake? Why didn't he follow up on this? But I think that the popularity rates indicate that they're giving him, they're being indulgent, and they want to wait and see. And I think if we go into the fall, it's going to make it a little more difficult if we don't see something concrete. But already the social conference took place. Prime Minister Ayrault has said what he thinks he wants done. Hollande has asked for compromise from the unions, which was not his tone before the elections. He's going to ask them to move a little bit on what they wanted before the election. So I think that, 2 months is a very short time to evaluate what's going to happen.
Right. But you were a little bit critical of his attitude vis-a-vis Germany, but there was also this notion that François Hollande, who had never been in government before, was really unprepared, especially for diplomatic negotiations. Do you think that, he took a position on Germany, you might not share it, but generally he's done rather well in terms of how he deals with world leaders or the most pressing issues around the globe?
It's too early to say that he has done well. We have no idea where we go with Germany. Well, they promised, Angela Merkel and François Hollande, they promised us something new, a new treaty, something that could go deeper. I don't have any idea. I think that the most worrying aspect of François Hollande presidency, and nowadays we can say it, is this imprecision I mean, it's not precise. We don't have the feeling that it's exactly the same feeling we had with Sarkozy too. But there was so much move, so many statements that the general feeling was different. Now we need very clear directions.
But isn't it by design that he's not being precise?
Well, I can give you a lot of examples here. There are many signs now. For instance, they say, well, government, not François Hollande personally, the government promised that after every police control, the citizen will get a kind of form or receipt saying the police controlled me. Well, we have all thought that it was absolutely, well, not serious. This morning we have learned that they gave up that ridiculous idea. For instance, they have promised a lot of things, abolition of prostitution. They have started with society reforms, not social reforms. And there is something in the French Socialist Party, which is the confusion between social and society questions. And they use a lot society questions. Sexual harassment, marriage for the gays or things like that. Well, that makes a lot of noise. But behind all these questions, there is still a very high unemployment rate. There is a lack of competitivity, which is absolutely dramatic. And there are a lot of financial problems. So I think there is no hierarchy in his action. That's the feeling I have, is the feeling of a massive confusion. There are a lot of good initiatives. The style is interesting. The fact that the Prime Minister comes back and that he takes his role following the Article 24 of the Constitution, it's a good thing. And Sarkozy made a terrible mistake in concentrating all the power between his personal hands. Well, the reestablishment of the Prime Minister is good. The style of the President is good. But we look for a direction. We need
some substance.
Yes, we need more substance.
We
don't need a manager. We need a president.
Okay, we'll see if the president can manage the country in the second part, where we'll discuss the bitter pill that the socialists might be obliged to impose on the French. Stay tuned.